Across the ocean, Marcus Chen stood at the window of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur through the falling snow. At 34, he had achieved everything he had sacrificed for: international recognition, prestigious commissions, residencies with the world's finest orchestras. Tonight he should have been celebrating the completion of his latest symphony, yet a persistent emptiness haunted the edges of his triumph. "The car will be here in 20 minutes, his assistant called from the doorway. "The gala committee specifically requested you arrive early for photographs." Marcus nodded without turning. "I'll be ready." Alone again, he picked up the composition that had troubled him for months. Something was missing, an emotional depth he couldn't seem to capture despite technical perfection. Critics praised his work as brilliant, but recently began using words like mechanical and emotionally distant. His phone buzzed with a message from Vivian, the flautist he'd been dating casually for the past few months. She wished him luck at the gala and mentioned something about dinner plans for the weekend. Marcus felt a familiar detachment as he typed a polite response. His relationship since Elena had followed a pattern. Passionate beginnings fading into comfortable companionship, before eventually dissolving when the women in his life realized they would always come second to his music Elena. Her name still evoked a complex tangle of emotions, regret, nostalgia, and the uncomfortable question of whether he had made the right choice. In his weaker moments, Marcus allowed himself to wonder where she was, if she still played, if she ever thought of him. Later that evening, as he accepted yet another award for artistic excellence, Marcus scanned the elegant crowd and wondered why achievement felt increasingly hollow. His upcoming world tour would take him through Europe, including Barcelona. The thought stirred something long dormant, a curiosity about the road not taken, the life he had refused to consider. Barcelona welcomed Marcus with Mediterranean warmth, its architecture and vibrant streets a stark contrast to New York's steel and concrete. His first 3 performances at the Grand Théâtre del Liceu sold out immediately, bringing standing ovations and critical acclaim, despite his own dissatisfaction with the work. On his 4th day in the city, between interviews and rehearsals, Marcus accepted an invitation to visit the Barcelona Academy of Music as a special guest. The director, a distinguished composer named Rafael Montero, guided him through the historic building with obvious pride. "We are particularly proud of our children's program," Rafael explained as they walked through sun-dappled corridors. "Many of our youngest students show remarkable promise." They paused at a practice room where students were preparing for an upcoming showcase. Through the door's small window, Marcus observed a children's chamber ensemble rehearsing a complex piece. "Impressive for their age," he commented, prepared to continue the tour. Rafael smiled. "Wait until you hear our youngest soloist. She's quite extraordinary." The door opened and the children filed out for their break. One small figure remained, a girl with dark hair who hadn't noticed the visitors. She adjusted her sheet music and began to play a hauntingly familiar melody that stopped Marcus mid-step. The notes floated through the air, a composition he had written in Prague years ago, an unpublished piece he had composed for Elena during their first months together. The child played it with intuitive understanding, adding subtle interpretations that reflected his original intention perfectly. "Who is she?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. "And what is she playing?" Rafael looked surprised. "That's Sofia Vasquez, one of our most gifted young students. The piece, I believe, is something her mother taught her. A lovely composition, though I don't recognize it." Marcus stood transfixed, studying the girl through the window. She couldn't be more than 6 or 7, yet her technique showed years of careful instruction. As she turned slightly, he caught her profile, the determined chin, the focused expression, the way her left eyebrow arched in concentration. "Her mother," Marcus said, his mouth suddenly dry. "Is she a teacher here?" "Elena Vasquez?" "Yes, one of our finest violin instructors. She joined us about 6 years ago after returning from Prague." The timeline aligned with painful precision. Marcus steadied himself against the wall as the implications crashed over him. "I'd like to meet them, the student and her teacher, if possible." Rafael looked curious but nodded. "Of course. Sophia's mother should be finishing her class soon. Shall we wait in my office?" The 30 minutes in Rafael's office passed in a blur of polite conversation that Marcus barely registered. His mind calculated dates, remembered their final nights together, and confronted the growing certainty that the child playing his unpublished composition was his daughter. A knock at the office door snapped him back to the present. Raphael rose to answer it, but the door opened before he reached it. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Elena said, stepping into the room. "You wanted to see me about Sophia's—" Her voice died as she saw Marcus. 7 years had added subtle changes. A few strands of silver in her dark hair, fine lines at the corners of her eyes, but she remained essentially unchanged, still carrying herself with the quiet dignity he remembered. "Elena," he said, her name familiar yet strange on his tongue after so many years. She paled visibly but recovered quickly. "Raphael, I just remembered I have another commitment. Perhaps we can discuss Sophia's performance another time." "Actually," Raphael began, glancing between them with growing awareness, "I believe Maestro Chen specifically wanted to meet you and your daughter. He was quite impressed with her playing." Elena's eyes never left Marcus. "I'm sure Maestro Chen has many commitments during his visit to Barcelona. We wouldn't want to impose on his schedule." "It's no imposition," Marcus said quietly. "In fact, there's nothing more important I could do with my time here." The tension between them filled the small office. Raphael, sensing the charged atmosphere, excused himself with a murmured comment about checking on the students. Alone with Elena, Marcus searched for words adequate to the moment. "Is that why you're here?" Elena interrupted, her voice controlled but trembling slightly. "You recognized your composition and got curious?" "I had no idea," he said honestly. "I came to Barcelona for performances. Visiting the academy was a courtesy to Raphael. Then I heard my piece being played by a child who—" He hesitated, needing to ask the question but afraid of the answer. "Elena, is she mine?" Elena looked away, her hands clenched at her sides. "She's mine, Marcus. She has been since the moment you chose your career over everything else." "You never told me," he said, shock and anger beginning to penetrate his initial surprise. "You never even gave me the chance to know." "To know what?" Elena challenged. "That you had a responsibility you didn't want? You made your choice perfectly clear in Vienna. I respected that choice by not burdening you with obligations that would have interfered with your precious career." Before Marcus could respond, the door opened again, and Sophia entered, violin case in hand. She looked between the adults curiously. "Mama, Senor Raphael said you wanted to see me." Her eyes widened as she recognized Marcus. "You're the composer from the posters. We're studying your second symphony in music appreciation class." Marcus knelt to her eye level, overwhelmed by the perfect blend of his features and Elena's in this small, vibrant person. "I heard you playing earlier." "You're very talented," Sophia beamed. "Thank you. I practice every day. I'm going to be a composer like you and a violinist like my mama." "That's a wonderful goal," Marcus managed, his voice thick with emotion. "The piece you were playing—" "It's a special piece," Elena interrupted, placing a protective hand on Sophia's shoulder. "One that's not published. Sophia, we need to go now. Aunt Isabella is waiting." "But Mama—" "Now, Sophia." Elena insisted, her tone brooking no argument. As they turned to leave, Marcus found his voice. "Elena, please. We need to talk." "The piece she was playing." She paused at the door, not looking back. "No, Marcus. We don't. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling right now, it's 7 years too late." The gentle melody of Dvořák's Romance drifted through the open window of the Prague Conservatory practice room, carrying Elena Vasquez's emotions into the cool autumn air. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the violin strings, her body swaying slightly with each passionate crescendo. At 26, Elena had established herself as one of the conservatory's most promising violinists, earning a coveted position with the Prague Chamber Orchestra despite being a foreigner from Barcelona. As the final notes lingered in the air, soft applause broke her concentration. Marcus Chen stood in the doorway, his lean frame silhouetted against the hallway light. Dark eyes filled with admiration. "That was breathtaking," he said, entering the room. "You've added something new to the third movement." Elena lowered her instrument, a smile warming her features. "I thought no one would notice. It's just a small variation." "I notice everything about your playing," Marcus replied, moving closer. "Just like I notice how your left eyebrow arches when you're concentrating, or how you bite your lip before a difficult passage." Their relationship had begun 4 months earlier when Marcus, an American-born composer of Chinese descent, arrived in Prague to study European classical composition. Their connection had been immediate. Two passionate musicians who understood the language of notes and rhythms as intimately as they now understood each other's bodies. "Are you ready for dinner?" Elena asked, carefully placing her violin in its case. "I made reservations at that cafe near Charles Bridge you love." Marcus hesitated, his expression shifting slightly. "Actually, I received some news today. That's why I came looking for you." Elena looked up, noticing the mixture of excitement and apprehension in his eyes. "What kind of news?" "I've been invited to participate in the International Composers Competition in Vienna," he said, his voice quickening with excitement. "It's next month, and the winner gets a 3-year residency with the Vienna Philharmonic." Elena's face brightened as she embraced him. "Marcus, that's incredible. I knew your work would be recognized." He held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her jasmine perfume. "This could change everything for me. My career, my future, everything." Later that evening, in Elena's small apartment overlooking Petrin Hill, they celebrated with a bottle of champagne. Moonlight spilled across the rumpled sheets as they lay intertwined, Marcus tracing lazy circles on the smooth skin of Elena's back. "Come with me to Vienna," he whispered against her hair. Elena propped herself up on one elbow. "For the competition? Of course I'll come support you." "No," Marcus said, his eyes serious in the dim light. "I mean afterward, if I win. Come with me to Vienna permanently." Elena sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "Leave Prague? My position with the orchestra, my students." "You could play anywhere, Elena. You're brilliant. The Vienna Philharmonic would be lucky to have you." She shook her head slowly. "It doesn't work that way, Marcus. Orchestra positions take years to secure. I can't just abandon everything I've built here." The following weeks brought increasing tension as Marcus threw himself into preparation for the competition. He spent endless hours composing, often missing their planned dinners and returning to Elena's apartment late at night, exhausted but exhilarated by his progress. Elena supported him unconditionally, bringing meals to his practice room, offering feedback on his compositions, and loving him through his moments of creative frustration. Yet a growing uneasiness settled in her heart. One evening, as rain pattered against the windows, Elena waited in her apartment with a special dinner prepared. Marcus was 3 hours late. When he finally arrived, his eyes were bright with excitement rather than apology. "I've finished it," he announced, dropping his wet coat on the floor. The final movement. "It's the best thing I've ever written." "That's wonderful," Elena said quietly, looking at the cold food on the table. "I made your favorite risotto." Marcus glanced at the table, guilt flashing across his features. "I'm sorry. I lost track of time." He moved to embrace her, but Elena stepped back. "We need to talk about what happens after Vienna," she said. "If you win, if you move there." "What about us?" Marcus ran a hand through his damp hair. "I thought we discussed this. You'll come with me. And if I can't? If I need to stay in Prague for my career?" The silence that followed held the weight of their unspoken fears. Marcus looked away first. "This opportunity comes once in a lifetime, Elena. I have to take it. Even if it means leaving me behind?" she asked, her voice barely audible. His answer came with a painful honesty that would echo in her mind for years to come. "If I have to choose between this opportunity and anything else, I have to choose my music. It's who I am." 2 weeks later, Marcus won the competition. Elena watched from the audience as he accepted the prestigious award, his face alight with triumph. That night, in a hotel room overlooking Vienna's glittering skyline, they made love with a desperate intensity, both aware of the approaching farewell. In the morning, Marcus left for a meeting with the Philharmonic board. His kiss was hurried, his mind already racing toward his future. Elena returned to Prague alone, unaware that their final night together had created something neither had planned. A new life growing within her, a lasting echo of their love. 7 years transformed Barcelona's Gothic quarter into a sanctuary for Elena and her daughter. The narrow medieval streets with their stone facades and hidden courtyards cradled their small family in a life far removed from the concert halls of Prague. Elena's apartment above a quaint bakery filled each morning with the aroma of fresh bread and the melodic sounds of her daughter's practice sessions. Sofia Vasquez, with her almond-shaped eyes and delicate hands, sat cross-legged on the living room floor, concentrating intensely on the child-sized violin nestled beneath her chin. At 6 years old, she played with a natural intuition that astonished even the most seasoned instructors at the Barcelona Academy of Music, where Elena now taught. "Remember to breathe through the difficult passages," Elena reminded gently, kneeling beside her daughter. "The music needs to breathe with you." Sophia nodded, her dark hair falling across her forehead in a way that made Elena's heart constrict. The resemblance to Marcus grew more pronounced with each passing year. The determined set of her jaw, the slight furrow between her brows when concentrating, the way her fingers danced across the strings as if they had always known the way. "Like this, Mama?" Sophia asked, playing the passage again with improved phrasing. Elena smiled. "Perfect. Now 5 more minutes and then breakfast, okay? Aunt Isabella is coming to take you to school." While Sophia continued practicing, Elena moved to the kitchen, her thoughts drifting to the life she had rebuilt. After returning to Barcelona, she had discovered her pregnancy and faced the decision alone. Contacting Marcus had seemed impossible. His choice had been clear, and Elena refused to be an obligation or an obstacle to his dreams. Instead, she had returned to her hometown, found a teaching position at the academy, and devoted herself to raising their daughter. The doorbell chimed, announcing the arrival of Elena's younger sister. "There's my favorite niece," Isabella exclaimed as she entered, scooping Sophia into a hug. "Ready for your big day?" "I'm your only niece," Sophia giggled, carefully placing her violin in its case. "Today's the school concert," Elena explained, handing Isabella a coffee. "Sophia's playing a solo." "A real concert? Not just a school recital?" Isabella asked, impressed. "The Barcelona Youth Orchestra invited 3 students from each district school," Elena explained with obvious pride. "Sophia is the youngest selected." After they left, Elena gathered sheet music for her classes, pausing briefly at the newspaper on the coffee table. The arts section featured a familiar face, Marcus Chen, now internationally acclaimed, announcing his world tour. The headline declared him classical music's revolutionary voice, with a quote about his latest symphony being performed in Barcelona the following month. Elena's fingers trembled as she folded the newspaper away. In 7 years, she had trained herself not to search for news of him, not to listen to his compositions, not to speak his name aloud. Yet occasionally, like today, the world conspired to remind her of what she had left behind.